The very first LEGO Star Wars UCS set was released in the year 2000. That set was the TIE Interceptor, which was based off of one of the ships in the movie The Return of the Jedi. Since then, every single one of LEGO's Star Wars UCS sets has been based off of one of the movies. Until now. What up nerds, my name is Matt and this is my review of LEGO's The Razorcrest. This is set 75331 and includes 6,187 pieces and retails for $599 here in the US. This set includes 5 minifigures, well 5 according to LEGO, and those minifigures are all characters we meet in the first season of The Mandalorian. Those minifigures are the Mandalorian, of course, Din Djarin, Grogu or Baby Yoda, Queel, and the Mythrol, and Blurg. Now we meet all of those characters in the first season of The Mandalorian. I don't know if the Blurg really counts as a minifigure, but we'll get to that later. I want to start by talking a little bit about the set overall. Like I said before, this is the first set that LEGO has introduced as part of their UCS collection for Star Wars that is based on a television show and not one of the movies. This set comes in one pretty large box, and there are 2 other boxes inside this one. On the cover, we see the Razorcrest in all its glory. It sort of looks like it's flying here, even though it doesn't really have a flight mode. You can't retract those landing gear. And as is standard for LEGO, if you turn over to the backside, you see some details of the build and then some interior detail shots. You also see all the minifigures resting on their little plaque plate, which goes in front of the ship. Now, for most people, you spend about 5 minutes with this box, looking at it in the store, taking it home, opening it, and then throwing it away, or maybe throwing it away, maybe you keep it, I don't know. But I don't tend to think too much about the box, really. That's not true. I love boxes. I'm a designer. I love boxes. My favorite thing about this box that the designer did was to include a view of the front of the Razorcrest on one side. If you turn it over to the back side, there's the rear of the Razorcrest, which is fine. You know, you'd maybe expect that. That's pretty fun. But then if you look on the bottom, you get a view of the bottom of the set. Which is, I don't know, I think it's pretty funny. So like I said, this set is divided up into 2 large boxes that you can find inside the main box, and each of those has a couple instruction manuals in them. There are 4 instruction manuals total. The way that the build process and the construction is set up is that basically one of the boxes includes all the main body, parts like that, whereas the second box includes a lot of the engine and the top pieces and some of those covering pieces that you can remove later on. It's actually a pretty nice set to build with a friend if you want to do that. Surprisingly, for a set this large, it only comes with one pretty small sticker sheet. I think there are around 16 stickers on there. And like you would expect, this set depicts the Razorcrest in its not new, but good shape, not dunked in water or destroyed or blown up like you find in season 2. Spoilers. Now, this is a pretty big set and it's going to take you a little while to build, so let's talk a little bit about the build experience for this Razorcrest set. Like you would expect, there's a fair amount of Technic in the main body for some structure and rigidity and strength, but actually not as much as you would expect. Once you get past that first handful of pages where you're assembling the frame, it moves pretty quickly into a system-based LEGO. It's really just that first chunk, and then this set actually does a really nice job of alternating between Technic parts and system parts. So given that this is a really big gray ship, I was actually pretty surprised and impressed how fun and interesting this build was. Even though it took a number of hours to build, I never honestly felt bored or not engaged during the build process. You can see for yourself all these incredible angles and tiles and the way everything's composited together. I'm super impressed with the level of fidelity in some of these more recent LEGO sets, but they somehow pull it off and it looks amazing. About 35% of this build is in these 2 large engines and in this big chunk of wing that sort of spans combines them and connects them. And it was actually pretty fun to do. Actually, now that I'm remembering it, there was very little Technic within that part of it. It was mostly snot pieces, which I thought was kind of fun. Assembling these chains for the engine was honestly maybe the least exciting part for me in building this, but that was about 5 minutes of work and then it's behind you and you don't have to do it anymore. There are a lot of really fun Easter eggs and really cool and interesting parts of the build on the interior, especially as you get through this. And encountering those over time as you sort of dip in and out of the interior and the exterior made for a really fun and exciting build process. Now let's talk about the minifigures for this set, and I want to start with the Mandalorian because oh man, he looks f***ing awesome. Looking at the Mandalorian, we see him in his pre-Beskar version. He's only got a Beskar helmet here. I think Durasteel probably for the rest of the plates. I used to really be into Beskar Mandalorian when we first saw him after he got his big armor upgrade, but I actually have come to really appreciate the worn and cobbled together look of the pre-Beskar Mandalorian. I think it looks great. I believe this is the same torso piece that we've seen on previous versions of the pre-Beskar Mando, and the same legs, and they look really great. I have no complaints there. They look perfect. One aspect unique to this set is the additional details that you can find on the Beskar helmet. This has got to be the best looking Mandalorian helmet we've seen in LEGO. The second aspect that makes this figure unique is that we have arm printing on the Mandalorian for the first time, and it looks badass. I don't know, I love his armor. I think that really makes it. You know, like previous versions of pre-Beskar Mandalorian look nice, but seeing the detailed prints in his arm pieces just looks so good in LEGO. Especially the pre-Beskar version where you've got the worn brown painted Durasteel on one side and then the blue and white Durasteel plate on the other side. It makes this figure feel so detailed. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge Mandalorian nerd. I've dressed up as the Mandalorian. I have a Beskar Mandalorian helmet up there on the shelf. Ah! Hold on, let me fix it. So it's really, really fun and exciting for me to see pre-Beskar Mandalorian in all his glory here. The Mandalorian, of course, comes standard with his Amban Phase Pulse Blaster. He includes the face printing. I believe for the first time ever, we're seeing Din Djarin's hairpiece. If you want him to say hi to Luke and take his helmet off. Moving on to the next figure, we've got Grogu, who is the same Baby Yoda figure we've come to love and have seen in many other Star Wars sets. He looks great and the scale is perfect. He looks really good next to the Mandalorian. He looks good in his little pram staring at those eggs that he isn't supposed to have, but no one's watching those eggs. Here's the thing about those eggs. Like, look, sure, Grogu should not have eaten those eggs, obviously. Bad Grogu, bad Grogu. But where was the mom at? All I'm saying is, if those eggs were so important to you, maybe you should have kept a better eye on them. The next minifigure we get with this set, and is also exclusive to the Razorcrest, is Kuiil. Kuiil comes with a brick-built backpack and pretty nice looking painting on his chest and back. This figure looks pretty good, and his goggles and earpieces look great. The colors on him look really nice, though the proportions of his face look a little bit different and not quite as good as in the show. But all the details are here, and overall, it's a good looking minifigure. Kuiil, in addition to riding the blurg, also comes with a wrench, because he's fixing all the time. Kuiil is, of course, paired with a brick-built blurg. LEGO considers this one of the 5 minifigures in the set. I don't know if I really count this as a minifigure, it's more of like a side build to me, but I'm not trying to throw shade at it. I think it looks really, really good. This is a super fun little nice blurg, in my opinion. I actually really, really like this blurg and his articulating tail and head. His mouth, does it open? Oh, no, his mouth does not open. Don't try to open his mouth or it'll come off and everyone will be sad. Lastly, we get to the Mythrol. I love this minifigure, and this character is pretty fun too. The Mythrol is one of the very first characters we're introduced to in the series when Mando picks his ass up, and he's depicted just as he is in the show. So he's got the handcuffs on, and he's wearing the same sort of jacket slash jumpsuit kind of thing. I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell, but he looks like he's wearing the same thing here. So he's got some pretty nice printing on the chest, on the front and the back, especially the front. You really get the sense of the leather and the big collar that he's got on and this very sort of warm outfit. Here's the thing about this Mythrol. The color of the head looks perfect. I think it's beautiful. He's got these wide eyes and this subtle little frown that lets me know that he knows that there is almost zero chance that he's going to be able to evacuate his thorax on the Razorcrest. It looks really, really nice, but I really do think he could have benefited from a custom molded headpiece. So you could really get a sense of those flaps where his ears are, the sort of pointy things, and then the points by his chin. And it would just look really, really great if they were dimensional rather than only being printed. That said, you know, our noses and ears stick out a fair amount, and I don't really feel like it's awkward when we don't have ears and noses on our minifigures, so I don't know. Like a lot of the Star Wars sets from the last year or two, this ship includes a pretty full and detailed and accurate interior, and it has a lot of fun Easter eggs in it, so I wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about some of those really cool Easter eggs within the Razorcrest. Up first, we've got that red wire that Baby Yoda shocked himself with while they were repairing the Razorcrest. That is located under the bed in the living quarters, which seems to be the same place where that red wire was located in the show if you go back and watch that episode. Like I said before, the Frog Lady's eggs are placed in this set, though naturally she's nowhere to be found. On the lower level, we see a couple of boxes. One of those boxes contains binoculars and the other one contains detonation charges. They're a real big pain to get to and to open and to get out without knocking over other things, so if you build this set, you're probably never going to touch them again after you put them in. On the top of one of those boxes, we see the light blue cookies that look like macaroons that Grogu ate and then later threw up. There's a carbon freezing chamber in the lower level right inside the back door, just like we see in the show in episode 1. And right next to that freezing chamber, there are 2 other bounties that the Mandalorian has frozen. We see Boba Fett's armor stored here on the ship after the Mandalorian got it from Cobb Vanth on Tatooine. On the very top of the ship, there's an escape pod, which we see in the show, but we never see it used. There's room for 1 minifigure in there. There's a weapons cabinet that's pretty well stocked with a bunch of Lego weapons. On top of the weapons cabinet, we see a Baby on Board sign with Baby Yoda's face and text in Arabesh. Now that sign is actually in the series. If you go back and watch episode 2 backwards, you can totally see it, I promise. Those are all the little Easter egg kind of things that I found in this set, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were more that I didn't even notice. So if you know about any that I didn't mention, then please put them down in the comments below. I need to be educated. Don't let me get away with it. This ship looks amazing, and you can really scrutinize the exterior for like half an hour if you really wanted to. But it's pretty fun opening it up and looking at the inside, so let's do that. So we'll take off this piece on top of the cockpit, exposing the main part of the interior of the ship, including the cockpit and the area just behind it. This cockpit is incredibly detailed, and this thing must be a pain in the ass to fly because there's like a million buttons in here. There's so many panels, all printed and looking really good. Oh my god, I just saw there's an Easter egg I missed. The ball here, the ball that Grogu pulls out and plays with all the time. That didn't sound right. Maybe he just likes balls. Anyway, it's represented here in the cockpit and it looks nice. Looking back toward the rest of the quarters, we see this super nice looking door that again matches what you see in the show. It's so cool. I don't know, I'm just a nerd. Behind that door, we've got Baby Yoda in his pram and the eggs that shall not be eaten, mostly. It looks like he's already eaten some of them. Then we've got a ladder that goes down into the lower part of the hull. Let me open it up a bit more here. We can grab the engines by putting one in each hand. Then we can take off this front piece here. That all comes off as one, just like so. Set that down, and we've got more access to the interior. And if we want to see the lower portion of the front, we can grab the door header there and pull it up carefully and set it aside. Below the cockpit area is where we find the living quarters. We see the bed, which if you pull forward gently, you can find that red cable. As you go back, you can find, there's a box back there that I'm actually not sure what that is. I don't know if it's some kind of generator or what, but it's attached to the ship using some kind of cable. So I don't know. If you know what that is or have a theory about what that is, let me know what you think that is. And behind that front part of the living quarters section of the ship, we've got the middle portion where we find the 2 bounties that the Mandalorian has and the cryo chamber, along with the weapons cabinet, Boba Fett's armor, and the 2 boxes with the cookies and the detonation charges and stuff like that. Now you might be wondering, this rear section's really big and flat, can I take that off? The answer is yes, you can, but there's not really anything back there. You can access it if you have the blurg stored back there and you want to grab him and get him out. But there's not much detailing in that back portion of the ship, just FYI. Having been in the back of an AC-130, there's not really that much back there anyway. To put everything back, we carefully place that central piece back on and press it down lightly. The engines are so big. These big engines go right on top, centered here with the escape pod in position. And then we can place in the top portion of the cockpit right in its place. So what are my thoughts overall on this very large and very pricey set? First, it's amazing. While it is expensive, this set is excellent and a near perfect representation of this iconic ship. This is actually the first UCS set that I own, but the size feels perfect and like exactly what you want from a UCS set. It feels big without being like unwieldy and undisplayable. And I'm really a sucker for sets that are in true minifigure scale, where the minifigure feels like scaled perfectly for an individual in the set. When you put the Mandalorian or Baby Grogu in this set or standing next to it, it looks like the right scale if you go back and watch the show again. Now, the front glass part of the canopy here was done in 3 pieces. 2 of these pieces on the side are printed and they look great. The middle piece is not printed, so that's a sticker on top of there. It would have been nice if they had found a way to make this whole piece 1 rather than 3. Now, that middle window is a separate window on the show if you go back and watch it again, so I don't think it's the end of the world, but the curvature of these 3 pieces is not exactly the same. This set is tiled off very well and includes just a handful of sections of studs, and I think the balance and mix of the studs versus tiling looks perfect. I wouldn't have wanted it to be any more tiled off than it is because I like that additional texture that the studs provide. It is a mostly big gray ship, but there are lots of little greeblies on here and there are little pieces in tan and then the yellow bricks with the worn paint. And they all actually have like corollaries to the real life counterpart. Well, real life in the show. If you have this set in front of you and were to go back and watch Mandalorian season 1 like I did, you'll see that basically every single one of these little pieces, these little dark gray pieces and tiles and greeblies and studs, matches something that you see in the show. The designers of this set did an incredible job of creating something that's the highest fidelity you can imagine for a ship this scale. I think in order for this set to be more detailed than it currently is, it would have had to have been substantially larger. Too large. The exterior of this ship uses mostly light blue gray, and I think that works really well and looks nice here. Looking at the stickers on the side, that yellow actually matches the yellow bricks pretty well, I think, but the gray matches a little bit less well. I wish they had done a little bit better job color matching. We also get a sticker for the information plaque, which is not my favorite. I think for a UCS set of this price, this should absolutely be a printed plaque piece. Now, LEGO has said that they plan on producing printed plaques in the future, but that doesn't help this set any. So right now, it's a big sticker. A little bit challenging to apply, and I just think would have looked nicer as a printed piece. So, fingers crossed that we'll see printed plaques in the future. The landing gear on this set looks amazing and looks just like what you see in the show, but it doesn't retract, and honestly I wouldn't expect it to. This ship is pretty heavy, and there are a lot of pieces that are sort of really loosely attached on the top where you're meant to take them off so you can access the interior, and I think trying to display this ship in flight mode just is not feasible and wouldn't make sense. So they've done what I think makes probably the most sense and kept the landing gear down. The two side doors are both really accurate and really clean looking. If you're looking at the set, you almost can't even really tell that they're doors, but when you pull them down, they come down cleanly and you can extend that little walking area, and they look great. You get one of those doors on each side and a rear door that folds all the way down using hydraulics. I mean, not real hydraulics, but like Lego hydraulics. Folding that rear door down both looks and feels fantastic, and there's not quite enough room to get Queel riding through there on the blurg, but the blurg can fit inside there if you want to march him on up that door. Again, if you get this ship, I really encourage you to go back and watch season 1 of The Mandalorian again, because the designers have absolutely nailed the exterior of this ship. If you pause any moment where you're looking at the ship, you can find like large chunks that match exactly, not exactly, they're not Lego, but this ship matches very well with what you see on the screen, and the fact that they were able to do all of that using Lego pieces is just phenomenal. Now, for those of you who are a little bit less excited about the price, $600 is not cheap for a Lego set, and a lot of people who would love to own this are just not going to be able to afford it. And I know how much that sucks. Is it worth that $600? I think so, yeah. It's expensive, but I really think there needs to be a place in LEGO's lineup where they create sets that really push the boundaries and raise the bar for what's possible in LEGO in a set, and this is a perfect example of that. The only thing I would really ask is that LEGO explore those same themes with play-scale, less expensive sets, and fortunately that's the case here. A couple of years ago we saw a far less expensive play-scale version of the Razorcrest, and it looked really nice. So for those who want to own a Razorcrest and really love this ship and are fans of The Mandalorian, I think that's a really great option that looks perfect on a shelf and won't take up nearly as much space. Well, that about wraps it up for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. All right, later nerds.